Hey, it's Harry. You're about to listen to Building, the podcast charting our journey to starting 1225, the audience first growth marketing agency. We want our podcast to be a very open and transparent look around the journey of starting an agency. And you're about to listen to one of the very first episodes where we haven't even decided the agency name, so you'll notice that does not get mentioned throughout these early episodes. We hope you enjoy listening.
I think that's my biggest learning from this whole kind of 3-month period since we've been recording this podcast. You know, the sales process, we're getting it refined, it's becoming easier, talking to the clients. Yes, okay, we've known a lot of these clients ourselves over the years.
Yeah.
But we're not getting loads of no's. We're having productive conversations that will probably eventually lead to something, even for the clients that have said no at this stage. So all in all, really positive on the sales front.
I think we really need to focus on the customer experience and make a big play when we do sign clients, especially in our early days. So like you would emailed the client today saying that you'd like an onboarding session with them. Like it's gonna be like a 2 to 3 hour immersion session somewhere between Wednesday and Friday of the first week. I think it'd be pretty cool if you were to show up to that meeting with some muffins that said client X our agency name on them. I think that's a pretty cool photo op. It's gonna be like, not many agencies are turning up with that. Like that shows already, actually, you know what, we probably made the right decision here. We had a feeling that we're getting on pretty well with this guy. He's already bringing his gifts, wait till he brings his results. Like, yes, it is a bit of an investment, but at the same time, we're talking like somewhere between 20 and 50 quid, right? We're not talking like a corporate hospitality somewhere.
When we come to recruit, I don't actually care about SEO skills. I know that sounds controversial, but I think anyone in the whole world could be trained on SEO within a matter of months. It goes with what we're saying about SEO, organic search in general. The fundamentals are actually very, very simple. So I would maintain that when we recruit people to the agency, we need to focus in on their, as I call them, soft skills. So, you know, their mindset and their initiative, elements like that, rather than their kind of technical and hard skills. Because again, SEO can be taught, but mindsets, not so much. Hello, and welcome to episode number 13, unlucky for some, of Building. It's our podcast that charts our journey to setting up our new growth marketing agency. It's essentially the penultimate week in our journey at our current agency, with 1 or 2 weeks left to go before a full launch. And before Harry says it, today's date for the record is the 23rd of June, 2023. Harry, how are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm good. That's not what I was going to say. It was so funny. So when I was typing out the show notes, so like what we do is we have a shared Google Doc, and every week we just kind of like copy and paste the same rough structure and then put new stuff into it. When I wrote episode number 13, I chuckled to myself and thought, I bet Brendan says unlucky for some after he says it. And then you said it.
I have to. You've got to say it every time you see the number 13. For me, it's a lucky number.
Interesting. Do you know on the street that I live, there is no number 13?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Strange. Hopefully this isn't an omen of bad things to come, and it's a good omen from here.
I would say that I would be, as you know, I'm a fairly, I'm not superstitious, I just have OCD, but I don't like odd numbers. So if we were leaving our current jobs on the 13th week, I would have been very nervous. But the good news is that'll be week 14 when we record next week. Will be we normally record on a Friday, so that would be our last ever day at that agency. But yeah, I'm glad to see that's worked out pretty well, and that's going to be on an even numbered week.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I mean, it's odd that you don't like odd numbers, because I prefer odd numbers. So maybe we go well together. So you'd hope so as well, considering we are starting an agency together. So let's crack on with the status update from this past week. So big news. We've got to start there, haven't we? We've signed our very first retained client. So we're on our way. Absolutely delighted with that. Yeah, it helps to have something in the bag ready for when we actually start full-time work on that. First week's going to be kick-off calls, immersion workshops with this client. So yeah, really, really pleased with that. A lot of kind of work went into getting that across the line, meeting the team, putting the effort into attend pitches and like even other agency pitches to consult and build relationships with the C-suite there as well. So that's given us a real helping hand there. So yeah, we got signature for one client. We've obviously got a couple of others in the pipeline. Harry, how's it going on the one that you're working on?
Yeah, good. I think first and foremost, actually, though, to call out the one that you just mentioned, like obviously we're super happy with the fact that we've been able to get that over the line, especially on an account where I think for us over the last 6 years as well, it's rare that we get to work with a client who is pretty much at like day one, really. They have some staff, they've done some work, but as we've alluded to before, their work hasn't been particularly good. So we have this like massive foundational piece to do before we even get onto the kind of like bread and butter stuff, and the bits where we know the growth is going to come from. But that's quite exciting in a way. And I think the other thing that is quite exciting is over the last couple of weeks, we've spoken about the client that we got a no from when we thought it was going to be a yes. And one of the takeaways there was that we lost it on price. What we do now after seeking feedback in this sales process is we were actually the most expensive for what, I guess, in terms of pure retainer fee. Now, our deliverables were much more comprehensive, but yeah, it's funny how that works out, right? We went from losing it on price to winning it, even though we were the most expensive. So there's a sweet spot to be found there, something that we'll play with. And then in terms of what I'm working on, I think it was one that I was hoping was going to be a pretty straightforward deal to get done, which it is still in many ways. Like this should close without a pitch deck. It should close without much background research other than just some broad opportunity spotting and things like that. We know the opportunities there. We know this potential client as well. Like we've known them for a long time. They, in terms of just the ongoing relationships. So confident it is going to close, but we're currently negotiating on what the commercial options will look like. And I'm sure what I'm about to say will resonate with a lot of people who are involved in agencies in that sales process. Is every now and then you get people who just like a bit of a negotiation as well. And I think where we're at now is somewhere between their ideal billing cycle, our ideal billing, and we're probably going to strike a balance whereby we're probably in the middle on terms of actual retainer fee, but there's going to be a performance kicker there, which is if we make a measurable difference, which obviously we've defined but don't go into on the podcast, we will then receive like the difference in which we negotiated on back as a one-off payment after a time period. Now, when you and I, Brennan, sat down to do the commercial model for the agency, we did speak about the fact that we would probably do some level of performance-based retainers for clients, but that it was never going to be the full gamble, skin in the game type approach, because like we don't think that's an ideal way of working, right? Like we very much want to work with almost like teams and partners. We don't want to have clients, and we felt that doing something like that, if anything, goes the opposite and more incentivizes the us versus them approach. So what we were saying is if we were ever going to do that, we'd have a base fee which worked for both parties, and then a performance kicker, never some kind of reduction in fee if that performance wasn't hit. And that looks like what we're going to close on. The current counter offer from our side is back with them, so waiting on that. I do know it's a Friday, so most likely now going to be a Monday thing, which I'll chase it if we don't hear anything. But yeah, I'm still confident that's going to close. My objective is to just really, really try and get that done in the next 7 days. So we're then sitting on, I think we can be transparent on this podcast. Like our ideal is to close before our first revenue taking month, which will be July, on a forecasted 10K monthly recurring revenue. And if what we're working on at the moment closes, we'll get there. So yeah, just full steam ahead on that, really, full focus on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously we've been working with a couple of other kind of previous clients and elements like that, little projects and bits and pieces. Yeah. And that's where my kind of focus has also been. So obviously closing this first retained client, but also been working with another client. I know them from previous work away from day job. We've had them on a project and we've come to the end of that project. We've got the final call on Monday, which goes through the roadmap that we've developed, collaborate with them on that. And we've actually worked out that there's probably opportunity there to do an initial kind of project to set the foundations. And then that will allow us to better kind of work out what the retainer levels work on that front. But we're going in with a nice 3-month project, monthly fee on that project. Confident that will land. I've essentially had kind of verbal confirmation of that. We've just got to work out what the work is going to be in that project to begin with, so that can allow us to be set up for future success. So yeah, if that lands as well, we're in a great position moving forward into our first month in the new agency, in our agency. Still sounds weird saying that at times because it's totally different. But yeah, I think that's my biggest learning from this whole kind of 3-month period since we've been recording this podcast. The sales process, we're getting it refined. It's becoming easier. Talking to the clients. Yes, okay, we've known a lot of these clients ourselves over the years.
Yeah.
But we're not getting loads of no's. We're having productive conversations that will probably eventually lead to something, even for the clients that have said no at this stage. So all in all, really positive on the sales front.
Yeah, I'd say so. And I think there's a couple more where we have those intros as well, right? So like we haven't exhausted our existing opportunities by any stretch, and we haven't even started, like technically, okay, we are serving some clients, as you said, but we don't officially, like our forecasted first revenue generating month is July. So the fact that we've already generated revenue is great. And I do think, again, like we've had a couple of referrals from close contacts as well, which we're working on getting some conversations from. So yeah, on the sales front, things are good. When we get to the, I guess, building part of the building podcast, I have some thoughts around what that means for hiring, but we'll leave that for then.
Okay, fair. Well, talking about buildings, the other big news of the week, we have an office.
We do. What a segue. Yeah, we do.
I'm trying, mate. I'm trying to be professional with this podcast,
I can see it. You're becoming looser as the week 13, and we've now got links like that. Imagine what it's going to be like when we're at week 26.
Friday afternoons are definitely a good time to record.
And then plus in our own office, we'll be having a beer at this point as well when we're recording.
Exactly.
But yeah, we have an office. Now, we spoke about this actually in last week's pod, that we were discussing terms with one place, but during some conversations, a potential client also said, hey, we have an office space, why don't you come check that out? So you and I did Tuesday time, I think it was, you drove to my house and we had a nice little lunchtime walk across the scenic streets of Northampton. But that space was great, but I think it required a bit more work in the sense of it was just one big room that would have had to have been partitioned off for us. And like, I'm sure they may listen to this at some point. I think we see ourselves in a place where, as we progress, that maybe there or another one of the offices they own could be like a future home for us. But one of the things that was definitely a drawback was the lack of aircon in that room. After a pretty muggy walk there, I think both you and I were sweating while we were trying to play it cool in negotiations.
Yeah, absolutely. Any bit of exercise in this heat, and then I bet in the winter as well, it's pretty cold.
It's probably freezing.
Those factors into that. So maybe next time we'll go and see their other offices that they've told us about and have a look there. But yeah, it's exciting to have that base. I think we need to work face to face over the first couple of months quite regularly. It's just easier, isn't it, to collaborate on things and get things done. So yeah, well done to you. You've kind of led on all of that front, negotiating and fighting to get the right things put on lease agreements and stuff like that. So yeah, happy with all of that.
Yeah, when you say it like that, it's funny as well because of all the stuff, you ended up doing the big boy stuff anyway and putting your name on the contract because I don't own a printer.
I know, yeah. But I had to dig out a printer. I haven't used one in about 3 years, figure out how it works. And what is this? So yeah, but we learn every day in this process. Perfect. Okay, so that's the office. And the other probably biggest asset for our business in terms of this is going to be our shop window, especially for what we do, the website. Do you want to provide an update on the website?
I can keep this one short and sweet. It's done. It's now hosted. Well, It's sitting on our Webflow account. All the forms are pointing to email addresses that we own. It's just not live. Obviously, hopefully by the time people are listening to episode 13, like you would be able to go to the website and see it, and we would have spoken a lot more openly around like what the agency is called, what the agency does, and things like that. But that is ready to go. So that'll just be a case of come whatever day we choose to launch, pressing the button, changing the DNS records, and we'll be live. So yeah, website is done and it's complete. However, actually, one thing is, so Brendan, you and I sat down, we discussed the site map, if you like, and the site structure, and we wanted to keep everything very, very simple. And if you do go to the website, you'll see it is a very, very simple site. Then deliberately slow, because that plays on what our messaging is going to be. And there was one page, which is the careers page, which both you and I said, nah, don't worry about that for now. No point ramping up that additional design and development cost. We'll deal with that in like 3 to 6 months' time when we first planned on hiring. Conversations that you and I are having now, where we're going to need that from week 1. So between you, I, and my partner, we're going to have to scramble to get a careers page done, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be kind of one of the first tasks in the office, working together, writing that all out. Mind you, we've got some copy on the go ready for that, so should be quicker than we think. It's just learning how to build a page in Webflow, which we've been told is very easy. So sure, we can do that.
Yeah, I'm sure we can. But yeah, that's going to be a probably week 1 activity ready for launch in week 2. But yeah, I mean, not a bad thing that we need a careers page earlier than planned.
Yeah, absolutely. So that makes it all sound like this journey is seamless and it's working really well. We're hitting all of our targets, all of our timelines. But there is one thing that isn't quite going to timeline, which is slightly disappointing, but obviously can't be helped. The launch video.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain?
Yeah, I can explain that one. So we've had George on the podcast, and we also know that George is going to be the man, I guess, directing and producing the launch video, and potentially, and most likely, a launch podcast as well, which would be, let's call it episode 0, before we then moved into the 13 episodes that lead us up to now. Probably good news and bad news. Like, good news is George is incredibly busy. The bad news means that he can't fit us in the schedule that we were hoping for. So we were hoping this week, next week, to be recording and editing ready for launch that first week of July. Unfortunately, we're probably about a week behind that schedule just because of how busy George is. Obviously, completely appreciate that and super happy that that is the case. But it means that we likely won't be recording and editing until that first week, which again does come with some benefits. One of them is we will be in our office space, so we will have more locations for filming. But it does mean that that original target date of the 3rd of July for the hard launch is probably now more like somewhere between the 10th and the 14th, or whatever that week is. So yeah, it's not all going to plan, and it also means that I'm gonna have to stick with this. I mean, I know I'm losing my hair, but my hair is longer than I would like it right now. But I'm holding out until the day before we film, so I look as fresh as possible.
So my beard really needs a shape up, shall we say? So, yeah, I think it's a learning on our part, just with timings and stuff. But obviously, we've had so much going on, working 2 jobs for a start, finding that and fitting it in timelines. We've been very lucky that a lot of people we've said, "Oh, we've got 3 weeks to do this." They're like, "Yeah, great. This is the first one." That is like, yeah, okay. We should have potentially scheduled it in sooner, but we learned from that, and that's fine. So what's the difference between when you say hard launch, what do you mean by the hard launch? And what do you mean by, we're going to be working on the 3rd of July. Are we just not going to say anything or do anything in terms of the launch?
The way I see it is a twofold thing. So we can go after sales openly from July the 3rd, no problem. Like, we'll have a list of probably slightly foul of the number, but let's say for sake of argument, I'm going to have a list of 200 target accounts. I plan on messaging a lot of those within the first week, but I don't plan on either of us hardly like Elon Musk, right? We don't have that kind of following, but at the same time, like, people do know who we are on LinkedIn. I don't plan on like pushing that message out at all. I see the play as being very, very quiet up until the moment we drop that launch video. Maybe like a little teaser in the first week of July, but nothing until that second week. That doesn't mean that, like you said, well, we're already serving clients, even though we haven't launched at all. Like, I still see us making sales plays from the first week of July, definitely.
Perfect. Makes sense. Okay, on to the building section of our podcast, straight away I read the first thing on the agenda. This is so Harry. Onboarding gifts. Explain.
So context for that is I remember when we were first putting the startup cost together, I came to you and I was like, Brendan, we have a problem. We've missed off a line item. And you're like, what do you mean? I was like, there's no line item for merch and gifting. And yeah, that's a big thing for me. I think it's important, but I think it actually comes back to something else, which is, was it last week? I think it might have been last week. We did the segment on people buying from people and how it doesn't really mean a lot as long as you relentlessly focus on the customer experience. I think it was. Anyway, basically, that is what I'm thinking here. So one of the things that I'm actually going to steal this from an agency we were at a long time ago, right? So do you remember when we were at old agency and things were quite often not as smooth as they potentially could have been? And one of the things that we spoke about quite a lot was like, that means that when things are going right, or when we launch a website, or when we sign a client, we need to be making a big song and dance about that and giving people like that warm, fuzzy feeling. So would that be like gifting? Would that be a night out? Whatever it may be. But it didn't really come to anything. Then we moved into our new agency and we did have a bit more emphasis on that, but it's very much relationship driven by results, which is great. Unless the results aren't there, then you have a bit of a problem. Then we hit COVID. So like all kind of like physical interaction disappeared. So it was just like we're doing now, which means that come a couple of weeks, we won't have to do it like this. We can do it in person. But like that then took a step back. And then we haven't really recovered from that. And I don't mean as an agency that we're currently at. I mean just in general, more holistically. Anyway, that's a long way of me saying I think we really need to focus on the customer experience and make a big play when we do sign clients, especially in our early days. So like you have emailed the client today saying that you'd like an onboarding session with them. Like it's going to be like, what, a 2 to 3 hour immersion session somewhere between Wednesday and Friday of the first week. I think it'd be pretty cool if you were to show up to that meeting with some muffins that said client X, our agency name on them. I think that's a pretty cool photo op. It's going to be like, not many agencies are turning up with that. Like that shows already, actually, you know what, we probably made the right decision here. We had a feeling that we're getting on pretty well with this guy. He's already bringing his gifts. Wait till he brings his results. Like, yes, it is a bit of an investment, but at the same time, we're talking like somewhere between 20 and 50 quid, right? We're not talking like a corporate hospitality somewhere yet. But but yeah, anyway, that's a long way of me saying I think we should, for every client we sign, we should send them some muffins.
Yeah, I agree. It's just that simple relationship building. It will get you off to a fast start. Anything that helps in the early days help build that trust quicker, all for it. It will be worth more than the 50 quid you spend on it in X amount of days. So yeah, all for that, definitely. Especially if I get to have one.
Sure. Sorry, I was just having a wry smile to myself because I was thinking that means that you can be the muffin man and I can be the gingerbread man.
Nice. I like it. Right, moving on. Startup costs. You've gone through as well. It sounds like you do a hell of a lot of operational stuff, but that's kind of where it sits at the minute, I suppose. So far, how are we doing against our startup budget?
Good, I think. So the note in our show notes says startup costs update so far under budget, and then in brackets, kinda. So let me explain. So I think you and I, we put together 2 documents when we first started to, I guess, apply for bank accounts and really understand if this was a goer or not. One of them was, what do we think our startup costs are going to be? And the other one was like essentially the forecast for the first year, and then a more detailed P&L showcasing that as well. As we are getting closer to launch, and potentially there are some more costs that we want to bring in that weren't accounted for, I thought, let me go take a look back at what we thought the startup costs were going to be to where we're at now to see if we're net positive or negative or neutral to that. And for the most part, we're coming in fairly significantly under budget. Now, some of that is because some stuff hasn't been ordered yet, i.e. there's a fairly substantial line item for merch, which has not yet transpired. It will, but it hasn't yet. But again, thankfully, due to some connections, we may be getting quite a lot of merch for not a lot of money. It's probably the best way to describe it. So website in total, we're under budget on, but I think we're both really happy with the decisions that have been made on that. A little bit over on some things, but again, we had him on the podcast. We did spend a little bit more on Jack than we had initially estimated in terms of the positioning and the copy, but we're talking a couple of £100, and you and I, I'm sure, both agree like way worth that. Like we're really happy with what we have there. So yeah, we're coming out about as a percentage, maybe 25%. That's probably not true. Probably more like somewhere between 18 and 20% quick maths under budget so far. The reason I put kinda in brackets is because we made a fairly radical decision around the office space, right? So the original plan was to go virtual office. So we do have a business address that sounds better than like a home address or something like that. But we've decided, actually, do you know what? Forget that. The right play here is to be in the same office, get the team eventually into that office space, get freelancers that we're working with closer in that office space, clients, etc. So like we'll be spending on average about £400 a month more than we had budgeted for that, just to have the office space. So technically over, but if we accrue that out, it still works out way under what we thought we were going to be. So yeah, we're coming out under budget, which means that we have plenty of room for branded muffins.
Fair. Yeah, and obviously we haven't come across some of the costs that will inevitably just appear, things that we haven't thought about. You put certain costs like business liability insurance and you go and find certain kind of average costs, but ours could be higher. Who knows? Or certain things like SEO tools. SEO tools are rapidly increasing in price. They're getting militant with their password protection. So each user needs a profile essentially.
Mate, I'm coming after them. I'm coming after them. I'm going to call one day, if we're big enough on this, if this podcast gets big enough, I'm going to call them all out and then I'm going to start our own.
Yeah, I mean, some of their policing has got very militant recently, hasn't it? I mean, we've both been told off in recent days with one SEO suite.
Mate, it's easier to get into the US these days than it is to share user accounts.
I know, it's a real shift, and I think that shift coincides with AI and open AI and all of that. Are they getting scared? Are they trying to protect their revenue and that side of things? So I understand it from that point of view. But back to my message, I think, yeah, so far, for the bits that are actually in our budget, we have done things really efficiently. And again, that's a shout out to the people that our contacts that have helped us massively, especially in some larger budget lines. They're friends of our new agency, and we'll recognise them in some way. I'm sure Harry will send them some merch at some point.
Oh yeah, the merch is going to be flying off the shelves, not because anybody wants it, because I'm just sending it at everybody. But yeah, I think we've been really lucky on that. I do think it's worth noting, and I think we have said this on a previous pod as well, that like we're not doing things as cheaply as possible. Like we could have set this up with 50 quid in the bank, right? But to be ready to go on the trajectory that we want to go on, like we haven't done that. We've spent the money where we think we should be spending the money, and we're just lucky that, like you said, we've been able to rely on some very good friends and some very good resources to be able to get to this point in time. We still have a week left, as you said, before we officially launch, so I'm sure there's plenty of scope to blow the budget somewhere, but so far tracking under budget.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this thing with the podcast as well, how hard do you find it not to mention the agency name?
I almost said it. I'm not sure if you caught me when I said that when I was talking about the muffins. But what I think is funny is we're literally gonna record an episode to kick it all off that introduces the agency. So it precedes like all of these episodes. So we could just be saying it, which I think is funny. But I think now we have to stick to it until we officially launch. We should just keep it mysterious.
Yeah, agreed. So final point in this section then, speaker pitches.
Yeah,
I will start first. I haven't pulled my finger out here and actually plucked up the courage to pitch for any speaker spots. But my goal for this year, however small, I'm going to pitch and try and get at least one slot as a speaker. How's that?
I like it. Good. And then we can have a race to tally up to see who can get the most.
Yeah.
But no, this is very egotistical of me, and I might regret this. So we might edit this out at some point. But basically, I'm putting this in there as a line in the sand, which is when I used to apply for speaker pitches under the agency that we currently work at, like brand umbrella, like it was pretty easy to get those slots. So far, I applied for 4 to 5 under the new agency name, becoming a lot more difficult to the point of we don't have any. So I think it is going to be a case of I was setting the sites quite high, like talking like MozCon, Inbound, Barbados SEO, whatever the correct name for that one is. Sorry. I think it is Barbados SEO or something like that. But anyway, applied for some big ones, haven't got them. Reason I'm saying this now is because I'm hoping in 12 months' time, when it comes around to getting those letters of a yes or no, because things are going in the right direction, because the podcast has more than one listener, shall we say? Hopefully, I mean, it's 2 of us, so at least that's 2 people. But hopefully, we get a few people that it will not be the same case in 12 months' time. But yeah, just wanted to put that out there. I also have something else which is wild, but maybe one day, right? Here's an idea. Maybe one day, agencies like to go into the thing of like doing their own conferences, right? Maybe we go into that format one day, and here's an idea as a venue. You might like it, you might not. How about an open air conference at Anfield? Oh,
I like the open air part of it. Anfield, not so much.
you could walk out and touch the sign.
I wouldn't want to. I think we'd have to find neutral ground. We'll go to Everton. Yeah, something like that. So, but yeah, I like that idea. I think it's almost everyone's doing a lot of the same sort of stuff. So difference is always going to be key there. So yeah, I can see it. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. I want to get through the first 6 months of this agency, and from there, that's where the real growth comes in, I would say. Perfect. So now to what is usually my favourite segment of the whole podcast, bringing a topic to the table. Harry, you've done a lot of talking on today's podcast. You do a lot of talking on all the podcasts. So I thought I'd jump in and lend a hand. Obviously, you talk a lot about SEO. I've been ahead, or am still currently ahead of SEO. But I thought I'd talk about the lessons I've learned from the past 5 years at the current agency and running a successful SEO team. So I just wanted to run through some of the lessons from running that team that we are going to have to put into place. Like we've mentioned on this podcast, eventually in the first month, we are going to have to start looking at recruiting team members to come into the team. So these are the things that actually telling you, these are the things that we need to consider when it comes to hiring those people. So just a few points. The first point is when we come to recruit, I don't actually care about SEO skills. I know that sounds controversial, but I think anyone in the whole world could be trained on SEO within a matter of months. It goes with what we're saying about SEO, organic search in general. The fundamentals are actually very, very simple. So I would maintain that when we recruit people to the agency, we need to focus in on their, as I call them, soft skills. So, you know, their mindset and their initiative, elements like that, rather than their kind of technical and hard skills. Because again, SEO can be taught, but mindsets, not so much. I also think, and this is something that I've learned from my time, and I'm sure you have as well, every person is completely different. So the management style needs to change. When I first started managing like the team at the current agency, I almost did a one-size-fits-all approach to the team, like trying to be, you know, super nice and all of this, you know, trying to like inspire people to action. But I realised actually some people, what they needed was something completely different. They got their motivation from a plethora of different reasons, and we need to match our management style to that. So there's no point talking about, oh yeah, management style, it's all super relaxed, easy, or, you know, driven, ambitious and stuff. We've actually got to appeal to each member and get them working together. And I think part of that comes with clear expectations set from word go. So from the moment that any new recruit, any person new to the agency walks in, they know from word go what is going to be expected of them and what is expected of the team as a whole. And I think part and parcel of that is setting collective goals. So I know we talk about PDPs and everyone's got different objectives and things might change because of business factors and things get pushed down the line. But if we have collective goals and a collective set date for those kind of end dates on those goals, and if we achieve them, everyone knows what they're going for. So hopefully that fosters what is my absolute number one. We need team players. Teamwork, teamwork, teamwork. Without that, agencies, departments and agencies can fall apart quite quickly if you've just got a bunch of siloed individuals. 5, 10 brains are much stronger together than, the individual brain, like coming up with the ideas, it's providing those clients with the value when we've got those kind of problem solving elements, and it's working and fostering that recruitment of people that work well and collaborate in teams. And I think obviously that's part and parcel of mine and yours relationship is teamwork. We each kind of focus on different areas, but at the same time we work together as a team, and that's how we can make this a success. And I think in general, for anyone that I've met in the industry, and I'm talking mainly younger people, kind of intern level, juniors who are just starting out in an SEO career, they think they need to know every single detail of SEO, every little element, like to the T, and there's one set way of doing something. Clearly they haven't heard of SEO's motto, it depends. But the actual simple fact of the matter is, all you need to do is learn the core fundamentals of SEO and then know how to research properly. You don't need to know the 10 different options of like redirects or href lang tags, canonical tags. All of that, you can find that out as long as you know what the core fundamentals are, content on a page, how to get it indexed and crawled, all of these technical elements, having the knowledge, that inside out knowledge of all of that, you don't need it. It's on Google, it's on the internet already. You just need to know how to look for it and find it and kind of understand the business you're working for and whether that task is actually going to bring any growth to that business. So it's all about that smoke and mirrors that some agencies and some SEO practitioners like to talk about. But it's easy. Learn the core fundamentals, which I reckon anyone could learn within 6 months, and then take it from there. So I know people, really seriously good SEOs, who are underconfident because they don't feel like they know everything there is to know about SEO. But that's not true. Don't let that feeling kind of ever get you down, because as long as you know the fundamentals, you know pretty much as much as any other kind of SEO practitioner needs to know. So just bear that in mind. I think with those elements, I'm going to be working on them over the coming months as we grow a team at our new agency, keeping them in mind, just working out actually how that looks like and what it actually means for our agency. So yeah, that's my topic to the table, Harry.
I like it. I like this. I like the role reversal. It's good. I'm going to do something that you don't normally do, but maybe it's something that we start, which is
because I have
a few points / questions on what you were saying. No, they're good things. They're topic conversations and things like that. But firstly, massively agree with what you say around the like learn the principles, then you can kind of just grow from those pillars. Like that's how we form any SEO strategy. That's what all of our proposals are based on, and I do agree with that from a learning perspective. What I will say though as well is you're right, like you have to know where to find those answers, but you also have to know that less now. Like ChatGPT and things like that, they can help you find those answers as well. You can type it way broader than ever before and you're going to get back some decent level, or at least pointers into the right direction. So that's one. The other thing you mentioned that I massively agree with, and it's actually something that with my team, the current agency, we spent, as you know, we spent a long time doing, is when you were speaking about the fact that different people respond to different line management styles and things like that. One of the big things that we did, and I think you did this, I don't know if you did actually in the end, was there's this theory around like the six different styles of leadership, and what we had everyone do in the team, all the managers do in the team, is almost like a matrix which mapped out all of the line management styles, so those 6 different styles, rank themselves in the like 1 to 6 as to which one they were most comfortable with versus least comfortable with. So that could clearly then show you not your gaps, but the ones that you may shy away from because you're least comfortable with them. And then we wrote down the names of the people they managed and mapped the styles that they responded well to and the styles they didn't respond well to. Because okay, there's no actionable things that you do as a result of that. But what it does do is it allows you to be conscious of the way that you're speaking with people or the way that you're directing people or the way that they're giving you messages and things like that. So yeah, if anything new to management as well, I'd say that's one of the things that massively helped us get more comfortable with everybody. And then the final piece on the exercise we did there was we had all of the line managers map those styles of line management to the board as well, because that really helped with managing up and it allowed you to like understand if someone was asking for more information than you thought was necessary, because that's just the way they like to line manage and things like that. So yeah, that was another point. And then the final one is a question for you, which is there like a one thing you look for when you're hiring somebody? And also this will really test their research processes if they bring this up in an interview.
Oh, that is a great question. Yes, there is definitely. However, I don't know if I'm actually labeling it up correctly. You've heard me bang on about initiative. Initiative is the way I like to frame it, but actually I think it's wider than that. And I think it's, it potentially is as wide as a winning mindset, a 10xer, elements like that. It just needs someone to come in and think about it and almost just do it, rather than someone who's like, oh, I'm unsure of that. There's 5 different options. I need to go check with someone, to get that done. There is such a fear, especially in this agency, but throughout. And I don't know whether it's a generational thing. People are scared to make mistakes. And I don't understand that. So initiative and the ability to understand that you can make mistakes. Mistakes are fine, but learn from them and obviously don't do them again. I think that's disappearing. People want kind of almost black and white instructions. Okay, this is this task. You need to do X, Y, Z. Go away and do it. And then if they're unsure of anything, they'll come back and say, how do I do this? Instead of going away, learning the process and actually developing it. Because again, I always maintain, and I won't go on too much longer, but I think it was Steve Jobs. Everything tends to be attributed to Steve Jobs or maybe even Bill Gates. But they said, if you want to get a job done quicker, employ a lazy person because they will find a way to get it done quicker. And I kind of understand that. People overcomplicate things all the time and they think there's a set process and it's harder than it should be in any role, instead of actually taking a seat back and just looking at it and like, okay, all right, this is the task. I'm going to go and do that. And just going away and doing it. So for me, it's all about initiative and that kind of making mistakes. I think they're the key elements for me that are looking for people.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I actually know that one. That was Bill Gates.
Bill Gates, yeah, that's the one. I paraphrased it as well. I didn't get that completely right. But yeah, it's people with drive to just get things done. So
nice. Well, there you go. So if you're 13 episodes in ahead of an interview, you'll know exactly what Brennan's looking for.
So, I like that. That was out of my comfort zone. First time of doing bringing the topic to the table. I'll do more of them in future. Base it around.
Yeah, I like it.
Around the team. I suppose I'll probably better do a couple on SEO as well.
Oh, as a former head, well, a current but soon to be former head of SEO, I'd expect maybe a few little nuggets from your time.
Yeah, fair, nice, perfect. Okay, weekly commitments.
Do you want to go first?
No, you can go first.
Okay, nice. I just had a thought as well, which is I don't know when we'll record next week. If we'll record on Friday or maybe sooner, given we're going to be in the office for our leaving drinks that day. But you know what next Friday also is?
No.
Mate, it's the day the world comes to an end. Universal Analytics will be no more and we'll be in a GA4 world.
To be fair, we can have timed our changeover ourselves to be any better.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
It's like the old agency, they're all set. We've obviously worked hard over the past 3 months to make sure that everything's covered on that front. but then we don't step into it and have any kind of current clients and stuff like that. We start fresh. So if there are issues, we can help them sort it out, but there's no kind of niggling elements that we've got to worry about. So yeah, that's a great point.
So yeah, so maybe we'll have a great idea for something, but I'll pick up with you separately. But cool. In terms of weekly commitments, then something that I've been saying for a long time now, which has started to be, I have started to put some pen to paper on this, but nowhere near where I'd like it to be, is the marketing plan. Like, I have a very clear idea in my head of, I think, routes where marketing becomes like, yeah, okay, revenue drivers for us, which all marketing should, but also a route in where some of that marketing activity can become its own separate revenue taking arm. So need to put pen to paper on that. Need to continue on with target accounts. I have, again, weirdly, so many in my head now that just from conversations with people have become target accounts. So I need to get them in. And then just any little bits that come up as we get closer to launch. I do feel we're in a very good place where, like, this isn't a panic now. We can kind of sit back. We can take I'm sure you're in the same position. Like, next week is going to be quiet for us from a actual job perspective. Quieter than it's probably been since like our first weeks 5 and 6 years ago. And I thought we were going to be using all of that time plowing it into the new thing. But we're in a position where we've done almost as much as we can without talking about the new thing and without breaching contracts and stuff until we're out. Then we're able to hit sales and stuff. So yeah, enjoying some of the downtime. I would imagine having a few drinks based on the number of dinners and leaving drinks and stuff like that I got booked in over the next 7 days. But yeah, if we have the marketing plan done and more target accounts down, that would have been a good week, and maybe closing some business, but I don't want to jinx it, so I'm not putting it in.
Yeah, fair. I'm going to be building, name of the podcast, but I'm going to be building more and more connections. So over the past few weeks, I've had the opportunity to start building those connections, agency owners. I want to actually sit down and book in like visits to their agency so we can connect. Had a couple of offers there. Again, some clients, some relationships there, they've offered to help introduce us to certain connections and stuff like that. So I'm going to get the ball rolling on that front. And obviously, I want the day job to continue. I'm sure it will go from every success once I depart, but making sure that the new team is in place and that all the current clients that I've enjoyed working with have been properly introduced to that, so that there's no kind of gap or drop in service that they would receive. So yeah, I think next week's going to be a lot of communications, having conversations. In fact, I've been offered to help an SEO tool, a startup SEO tool, with some thoughts just based on my position. So I might do that to see if we get free access to that tool. So that might be a bit of a cost saving. But again, it's all about connections. And I think for me and you, in our new roles as co-founders of an agency, connections are going to be absolutely everything. So
yeah, exactly. And hopefully some made on the golf course. So again, if you are listening to this, you play golf and want to meet Brendan and I, book a tee time and I can almost guarantee we'll be there.
Yeah, I absolutely seeded that in with the CEO of our first client. So first thing he said, "Oh, how was Father's Day?" It's like, "Oh yeah, great. I played golf." So he knows he's in. So yeah, that's a good tip. But anyone who wants to play golf, we're down for that at any time. So
exactly.
And actually, I think that leads on. Unless you've got anything else, Harry.
Nothing more from me.
Perfect. Well, swing well, but true. To help us build our audience, please like, share and subscribe. If you listened on Apple or Spotify, please leave us a 5-star review. And if you watched us on YouTube, please leave a question or comment and we'll get back to you. Thank you.